welcome back.
Hello.
Another podcast.
Yep.
Today we are joined by Johannes and Martin, as well as James and Jonas as normal. And today we've got a few subjects we're going to talk about. Do you guys want to give a quick intro just to say who you are?
Yeah, Johannes, do you want to go first?
My name is Johannes. I'm a enterprise mobility MVP. I own and
For
operate
3 years.
3 years. Yeah, I think so.
3 years.
Been in the business for like 12 years now, I think. I am a certified forklift operator. I'm very proud of that. And I own and operate the EMS Community. Martin.
Nice. I cannot nearly offer that much. No, my name is Martin Hemken. I'm from Germany. I work for a German MSP, actually. I've had a lot of experience working with any size customer in the endpoint space, so I'm really happy to be here. I know some of these folks in here, followed their stuff. I've listened to their stuff for a long time, so yeah, glad to be here.
Lovely to have you.
I have something to say because I've been reading your blog, Martin, and I can see in the about section you have been working with clients from 15 to thousands of clients.
Yeah, I
And
think the biggest one was about 75, I believe. 1,000. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a very humble about section as well. I messaged
Yeah.
you privately to say that. It just
You did.
it just made me a bit warm
You
and
did.
fuzzy when I read it. Good
Oh,
feat.
come on.
Okay, we've got some subjects on the cards today. The first one we're going to kick off with is the Microsoft Open Book examinations. I know this works because a couple of days after reading this blog, I took an exam and I passed it, and I needed the open book because there were so many questions in SC300 about which specific role or action do you need to do with the right role. So there's a big reference table on the Azure MS Learn page, and you have to basically search through it. You don't get access to a search engine. You are put on the homepage of MS Learn, and you have to either navigate or use the built-in search. So if you type the word Azure into that search bar, you're going to get quite a few results.
The search is not
Interesting.
that good, really. But it's just the Learn page. So every external link is just there and it doesn't work. Or how does that
Yeah,
go?
so when you click on it, it will say a little message pops up to say you don't have access to this page. It's even quite hard to find the homepage because sometimes the homepage tries to go to Microsoft.com and that gets blocked. So it's a bit like the Wikipedia game.
Okay.
Handy.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
think
interesting.
that because a lot of exams here are like that as well, especially if you go into any kind of craftsman job later, you will have an open book like everything about metals, so you can look up the melting point of metals and stuff like that. So you don't have to memorize a lot of that. So do you think the quality of the questions will improve over time? Because right now I feel they are still reusing the same questions.
James, do you want to take this one?
Well, yeah, I was going to say something similar, which is that personally, I have a kind of problem with the exams because you have to remember a point in time set of information, and Intune changes on a monthly basis. UIs change pretty frequently, and that stuff really throws me personally. I guess if you're able to reference Learn pages, that would mean that the questions have to match, right?
What do you mean about matching?
So the actual question would have to match what the actual Learn article is saying.
So the quality would improve, is what you're saying.
Or the quality would at least be in line with the most recent set of docs, you would imagine.
Yeah. I will expect if we can have access to the Learn page. I will expect to have more like architecture questions in the exams, and not just
Yep.
how is the life cycle of something and 5-6 numbers you can choose between, but a more like you have like a use case you have to solve in a way, and bring in different technologies that you can search within Learn. That makes sense.
Being
following
able
the
to
substance.
apply the knowledge instead of just rehearsing what you've learned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Lewis.
I think it's going to definitely encourage more people to take the certifications. It takes a lot of pressure off of people to remember reference information. What is the maximum number of XYZ? Well, you would just look it up, and in the first couple of lines of that blog post, it does say, well, how many times have you been in a situation where you say, I'm going to Google it, I'm going to Bing it, or whatever search engine you use.
Big it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get that one going, but it's not catching on. So you can just
But
look it up.
since Google is getting worse each year, I'm kind of starting to get there. They are getting there, They are trying to introduce Bard, but that's another topic for itself.
Yeah, we could talk a lot about Bard and how well that went for them.
But another thing I'm starting to like question myself is, I remember the first time I was going to a Microsoft certification exam. Do you remember that time?
Yeah.
It's a couple of years ago, but I remember going to the exam. I did it in person at a test center. I was sweating.
Bullets. Yeah.
Sweating bullets. Yeah.
I
remember that.
Sweating bullets.
I failed my first exam. I'll be honest. I server 2012. That was in 2014, and the first time that I went there, I failed, and I was so embarrassed by it that I immediately the next day went to my boss and told him, "I'll pay the redo. You dare pay the redo?" And I did, and then I passed.
Yeah.
Good
Nice
times.
The last exam that I took, exams was the A+ and Network Plus, and I did them on Windows 2000. So that dates those quite drastically. I think it must have been about 2003, something like that.
I did the A+ in 2011. Man, that brings me back. Like, oh, here are a picture of like 30 different fiber optic connectors. What are they called? Who cares?
Makes me wonder whether we'll get to a stage with these exams where we've got Copilot coming into all of the different products. Will we see Copilot generated exams that come from the MS Learn pages, and they are dynamically generated to
Okay.
There you
eliminate brain dumps or anything like that? You would just, it's new content every time.
Because they wouldn't be able to keep up. Yeah.
But Lewis, was that bait to get like a huge discussion about Copilot on this podcast? Because I can rant about this.
Oh, where do we start?
Oh,
this wasn't on the list of things to talk about.
So so let's go on that tangent. So the biggest issue I have with all this AI stuff, as useful and interesting as it is, if you don't know what a hamburger is, how would you ask it how to cook one?
Oh, you're referring to the Bart situation where they try to stack the hamburger? Yeah.
Yeah, or just any question. Like, if you don't know that you can do like email filtering, it just never occurred to you that was possible. How would you ask it how to perform that problem? Or how to solve that problem?
Isn't that the whole point of the natural language stuff, is that you don't need to know the key terms. You can just ask it what you're trying to achieve.
Possibly, but that might just also lead you on a completely random direction that has nothing to do with the problem you're trying to solve.
It's been 9 minutes and he's already
Say the line.
He's almost said his line.
I'm not doing that.
So
yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, but
I don't see how the AI is going to fill that gap.
There's obviously lots of people saying how AI is going to take jobs, and I think it it will take some.
Oh yeah.
I'd much prefer to speak to Copilot or ChatGPT than I would, some call centers. Because you can get to get better results out of it, and you can explain issues better.
How long do you think it'll take until translation offices go basically out of business?
Well, they haven't
Ooh, that's a
with
good
Google
one.
Translate and Microsoft Translate, and they're pretty advanced now.
I mean, I'm using a different engine, but yeah, translation engines have gotten pretty good, especially for Roman-based languages.
I'm gonna like, let's go back to the track on how it is
sure.
to have AI inside a Microsoft technology.
Reel it back in.
We can always clip stuff out. Remember that. So we're gonna clip this one out.
The learn stuff.
Mm.
Would it encourage me to try and do another exam? Maybe. I'd like to hear how people get on a bit first.
But
Yeah.
okay, so how about this? What if it changes the nature of the exam, and instead of it's a list of questions that you have to answer, it's a conversation you have with an AI with a speech synthesizer module. It's just it's like you join a podcast, but there are like 4 other artificially generated people that you talk to, and they just ask you like, so Jonas, what do you think about blah 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 in Intune, and then you have to sort of fill it in, and then in the end they somehow compute whether you know this or not.
That could be the case study section. So like the AI case study where you speak to the 4 people and they can throw in little questions like, how many devices can I enroll in once?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that thing being interesting to actually accomplish like a workshop in a way, right?
Yeah.
So we have probably all been in a workshop where there's different people and different ranks, different experiences.
Yeah.
And they tip in their questions in a way that probably not about this certain subject directly, but some kind of indirectly question to where they want to be at, or the technology we're talking about of the presentation we're doing this day with the customers. I could see that one.
Question: do you think the questions being asked would be from a teacher's perspective or from a customer's perspective? Because they are already doing the case studies in the questions. So I would love to kind of see this as a customer approaching you with an issue to make it more natural to bounce that questions as you would on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be customer driven, I would say. But yes.
So the customer has a use case. They want to accomplish something. They want to deploy their machines faster. They have a complex setup. You can start to ask questions to the setup and understand their architecture as it is. And then you can come with your valuable opinion to the best
you would
solution.
Need to ask the right questions to get where you want to go, etc., etc. It would be a conversation at that point, yeah.
So moving on, Intune policy, ConfigRefresh.
Shout out to Rudy.
Shout out to Rudy.
Shout out to Rudy. Oh yes.
Always a shout out to Rudy. But he's definitely doing work in pulling apart a lot of stuff, and seems like the Apple like declarative. Quite a word. Yes.
I'm thinking about declaration.
Yeah.
That's the word.
Declarative
Close enough.
device management with the Mac OS stuff, similar to that, and not relying on on the way that Intune typically does policy refresh.
So I haven't written. I haven't read his blog. But can you tell me a little bit about what it is, and from a person who only been working with Intune as it is now, but now they make some changes to how it apply configurations, or
Can you not understand one of
Okay.
Rudy's flows?
Hey, this doesn't look. This looks MS Paint still. I thought he
It's-
moved on.
No, I think it's MS Paint. But
He said he's working on something, not that he's there.
but do we get faster refresh?
uh,
Slots or
offline refresh of policies. So yeah, you've configured something, the device knows you've configured it, and whether or not the device has an internet connection, if that, what did you say before we started recording, Martin? Like config drift, essentially.
Yeah. Yes. You want to avoid config drift because that is basically what desired state configuration is. Define a state, keep it at that state at all costs, check in regularly that it is still the state that you defined, which is what you want to do. If that is something for clients, that's another discussion though.
So config drift is, can you explain that to me? I actually don't know what it is.
Sure. There might be settings that either let's say a help desk person joins the machine, changes the setting because the user is annoyed by it, but you actually set that in one of your policies. Right now, it might never get set back, or it will at least take until the next refresh cycle of Intune to be reapplied. If you had this local refresh that has a state of that setting, it would be reapplied after a fixed amount of time. Basically, I want to drop that word. Basically, what group policies also did.
So one way this sort of tends to appear in a lot of customer environments is you are deploying an application as a required install, and some users just don't like it, so they keep uninstalling it. But Intune keeps reinstalling it. So that is sort of prevents that configuration drift. They don't like the stuff, but you really like the stuff, and you're in charge.
It's a good way of putting it.
And this thing just sort of speeds that up. Like, oh no, this app actually should be installed even if you unplug your machine from the network or whatever. It's probably going to be focused on policy and has nothing to do with apps. I don't know, but that's what I would assume.
That from a security perspective, I think we've already got some mitigations in place. So on certain policies, you can. I'm thinking firewall. You can disable local admin merge.
Local merge.
Even if somebody has admin rights and tries to change it, you just say, "Well, I don't care what you change it to." But this would stop people who might have some sort of, like IT people messing around with their own machines, maybe breaking stuff.
This is something that help desk does. Like, C-level is crying, and I don't want this corporate background thing. I want my dog.
This macro, this Excel macro, I need to run it to get this invoice out today. Can you run it? And it's like, it's a Friday, it's the end of the day. You quickly allow the macros to be used, then go off to the pub. And then by the time Monday comes back around, that macro is blocked again.
You mean you're not pulling your laptop out at the pub to go and reset the setting back?
Only in Copenhagen.
I suspect that this policy reapply declarative stuff is going to get really popular with the various developers for the various users whose job is to be a software developer, because quite often they have local admin on their machine and they like to monkey around with this stuff. But now they can't anymore.
Good.
That's a good example,
The situations are, the Intune admins need to get very familiar with how to make settings catalog work for their user base within Intune, or people just don't adopt Intune enrollment because it's too much effort.
do we just hypothetically right now SyncML responsible for setting policy? Like, is this the start of changing stuff? Like, group policy. Did you know that stuff was applied without digging into it?
I think
use there's you just said a lot there. You start, Johannes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the thing. For 20 years, people have been using group policy, and it's you just shoot that out of a cannon into your environment, and hey, I applied this to James's machine. Surely it has applied. If you don't know, you would have to go and verify and check. And that was one of the big grievances with group policies, that you couldn't know. And you were reasonably sure, like, yeah, this is going to be applied to, over 90% of my devices. But on thorough inspection, you would find out, no, that wasn't actually the case, because there was some weird inheritance issue, or there was something broken on the machines, or just there was something going on that you couldn't possibly imagine. And you had no way of knowing that your policies, some of them, not all of them, simply never applied properly. Now, with Intune, and this is one of the main reasons I jumped on the whole Intune bandwagon back in 2019, I guess.
Because of compliance policies, yeah.
No, you could see in the portal. I deployed this policy to these devices, and I could see whether they applied or not. Now, that's probably not going to be like 100% every time on every single device, but I'm getting some feedback.
But you can see that the policy was delivered to the device.
Yeah.
It's still, I guess, the next bit there is the idea is that it was delivered to the device and successfully applied.
Yeah.
But depending on the CSP and what responses it can give back, like, there are certain instances that you don't know, and I wonder if this is part of closing the gap on that.
I've seen people say that that's a reason why they like group policy over Intune, is that they just have I
don't have to think about it.
No, but they have a built-in confidence that their policies set that they've had for 10 years always works, and so they're not going to try and move it into Intune because there's so much red in the dashboards.
Yeah, I'm very I'm very confident that I will win the lottery every time, but I can't be bothered to buy a ticket.
Yeah, so we could spend quite a long time talking about how applying Intune policy over GPO managed devices and wondering why there's red in.
Why it doesn't work.
But
what I would say is GP update with an Intune joined device is always successful. So.
Yeah, it always reports back as successful.
Yeah.
Must work.
What I'm thinking about is the compliance policies. In my head, they are therefore to actually ensure that the configuration is set, and there's a double checker in a way.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that in this regard?
I'm not actually sure it's going to check the health again of a device, for the simple reason that if you have a custom script in your compliance, which can be infinitely complex, you don't want to run that like every hour, most likely. Same with baselines and configuration manager. There were just some baselines that were expensive to run, so you might not necessarily want that. I wonder if, when you say that, if they are going to make it an option to kind of pick and choose which should be reapplied over and over again. Like, okay, I want compliance policies to be reapplied over and over again. Settings catalog, templates, stuff like that, maybe.
Some compliance policies are just checks, but some remediate certain settings, and I think they all use existing CSPs to check for the compliance status as well.
Password complexity, right?
But
That one does, yeah.
In my head, like you have the compliance policies, right? But you also have the green marks inside Intune that can give you the ping back and say we are green, we are good. But then why do you need a different set of interface that is called compliance if you can just build in the compliance check inside your, as you said, Martin, inside your configuration?
That is also what baselines were heavily used for in configuration manager. Let's not kid ourselves. Most people didn't use them as baselines. They used it as a scheduled task that reports back to you. So yeah, sure, in theory you could do that as well. I think that a lot of people are already exploiting the custom compliance, but that is not so much related to the config refresh stuff. At least I don't think. I mean, all we know right now is the in development page, and that's about it. And release blocks, of course.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Next up, unless we've got any other config refresh.
I think it's a welcome addition, and I can't wait to try it out.
Yep.
With you on that one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same.
What's new in Intune August edition? Specifically, the settings insights. So, supposedly a little. I've yet to see them. Has anybody else seen them?
Yeah, I've seen them today and wrote about it in the Discord. I was also surprised that it was in there. I was upgrading my Edge baseline, looking into the new Edge baseline, and then I saw the
How big is that tenant?
setting inside. I think it was around 50 users, this one.
Because I really think it's related to the company size. I think that on a lot of very small companies, they might not even have that data. So at least my test tenant, which has like not even 10 devices in it and not even 10 users in it, it might not have enough telemetry on that yet. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
Could be.
so you said you saw it in the Edge baseline.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was in the M365 apps one, because that one's actually settings catalog backed. But interested that it's in the Edge one as well. But supposedly supposed to flag up the organizations. Oh, thanks. Organizations. I love this.
That is the most stupidest way of zooming in.
I'll make this picture bigger. Oh no, I'll make it smaller.
Yeah.
The little icons, organizations like yours configure this setting to enabled. So yeah, I guess to your point, Martin, it might be that it has to, a tenant has to have a certain amount of telemetry to know what organizations you're like, because it can't be learning that from anywhere else.
But what I'm thinking is that if I then made like 100 dummy tenants and I just made this one to enable, and it should probably be from a security perspective disabled, would it then recommend other people to enable it?
This is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Because we talk about in our Discord and around other communities about who and which frameworks to listen to and trust. And now you've got one that is essentially user driven. And if 60% of the people have got the setting on the wrong option and it's a detriment to their security, does that then guide more people to do the wrong thing for their company? Like, are we thinking about these settings, or are we just copying everyone else?
It sounds like poisoning, basically. Poisoning attacks, where you would exactly do these kind of things.
So what if you had enough tenants saying that block macros from running an office is set to disabled, that it would suggest that to people then take that on, and you would see an uptick in...
That is the issue with statistics. If you only go by statistics, you will run into issues like this. You can't just go by numbers. It doesn't work.
You should also keep in
Yeah.
mind that there is a very, very large. Well, I'm not going to pull any numbers out of my ass, but
No more stats, please.
there is a significant number of customers that are brand new. Like they've never used anything else. They had no. If any company that was formed in the last 5 years, they are cloud only, and they will most likely
Well, we
stay
hope.
cloud only regardless of how big they become.
Hopefully.
So stuff
you'd
like
be
this is going to
surprised.
help them. Yeah, I mean,
I know that at least 3 or 4 people in here do that on a daily business, so we try.
Yeah.
but I think it's well intentioned. I generally like this sort of stuff, but it has to be curated to a degree, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Or at
Okay.
least because hey, companies like yours, well, do you know what kind of company I am? I mean, if I'm a law firm, I want my stuff to be based on other law firms.
Well, that's why I was just looking at in the Microsoft doc, because it does actually say models used to categorize organizations, so that
Yes.
they do.
There is another place in Intune where they do exactly that, which is endpoint analytics, because the baseline, if you create a separate baseline, it will also go by your type of company that you specified somewhere in your Azure tenant.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see where they're gonna go with all of this data, because let's be honest, Microsoft have a lot of data, and that is just one of the ways they can give us some kind of feedback when we're actually doing our implementations or configuration on a daily basis.
Yeah. I think the amount of lots of people underestimate the amount of telemetry that Microsoft has about everything, and that uproar when something gets removed from the start menu or something is for a very, very small group of people who use that thing, and Microsoft have the telemetry to back up the fact that very few people use it.
Are you trying to make me sad about WordPad?
No, WordPad's bad, and you should feel bad. It's always been bad.
How else am I supposed to read my RTF so I get an email?
I've never opened that app intentionally.
You've just forgotten that you haven't installed Office and you open something.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yep.
Yes, this is the perfect app to open an XML file. Well, thank you.
You tried.
At least it's not Internet Explorer anymore.
It's always Internet Explorer behind the curtain. It's still there. Lewis, I think there's an issue that you've noticed.
Yes. So you've decided to look at Defender for Endpoint, and you are an SMB, and you've got 150 users, and you are curious about the features of the whole product stack, because when you look at Defender for Endpoint, there are 3 plans described to you. You have Plan 1, you have Plan 2, and you have Defender for Business. You've got Business Premium, no worries. You've got Defender for Business, and that is kind of a mixture of P1 and P2. There's some crossover there. Protection-wise, you get the same level of protection, but you don't get some of the advanced features like threat hunting and machine isolation and some other bits as well, like machine groups. But you're potentially coming to the end of your Microsoft license, your annual renewal date, and you like to have a play around with Defender for Endpoint P2. So you've got your 150 business premiums, you buy 1 Defender for Endpoint P2. And what you'll notice today is that if you do that, all devices will have the Defender for Business experience. So let's say in theory you bought 150 Defender for Endpoint P2s, everybody on that tenant and every device is downgraded to Defender for Business. So no advanced threat hunting, none of the other features that your SOC team might want to use, you're downgraded. Now this has unofficially not been the case for that long, as far as I can tell, because when I started playing around with these products about 2-3 years ago, you could have Business Premium and have P1 or P2, But I think what was happening is it uplifted the whole tenant to P2, and now they're kind of doing the reverse thing of this is quite computationally excessive for us, so we're going to put you down to the lowest level. So how do you get around this problem? There's only one way to do that, and that is to completely remove the business premium license from the tenant. It's not unassigned. You have to deactivate it and cancel the subscription in M365 billing. So Microsoft recently have put a document out or a blog out to say that you can do mixed licensing scenarios for Plan 1 and Plan 2, which is fine because at that point you're at an enterprise level, but you cannot mix business premium Defender for Business with those enterprise SKUs. And I think that's going to make it harder for customers to adopt these plans and learn them and want to go into this product suite. What are everyone else's thoughts on this at the moment?
I like spending other people's money, so I don't see this as a huge problem.
Yeah, if you can go to E3, then that's fine. But the cost of business premium is something like UK money. It's like £18, and E3 is like 32. So it's a big jump.
Yeah.
And there's a downgrade in terms of security in some regards. Keep that in mind. P1 is not as good as Defender for Business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
E5
just
for everybody.
bring up the
E5
marvelous
security. Yeah.
M365 maps to
Thank you, Aaron.
Yes, indeed. So P1 versus business. Yeah, business, you get some of the P2 stuff that you would essentially lose by making that jump from business to E3, right?
Yep.
Yep,
I mean, it's
exactly.
not just Defender for Endpoint. You also don't get Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 in E3, which is why the business premium, when you get to that 300 seat mark, the only real way to get adequate protection is to buy E3 with a load of add-ons or just go to E5. But the cost difference is huge.
Yeah. Business premium to E5 is no joke.
That is, yeah.
It's not. And business premium is by far the most valuable stack an SMB can have from all vendors.
Okay. I'd like to give a counterpoint to that. So it's not so the problem with E5 is not so much the cost, it's that you need staff that is able to put these features to good use. The actual cost of buying the stuff is low. This stuff is cheap. Even the E5 is cheap.
But if you've got a business which is small, is growing, has got healthy income, but is never going to get to that sort of size, that is a massive increase in cost for reduced functionality that you would have otherwise. And that would be a very difficult sell. And you're right. I see very few customers personally who have E5 that use all of it, or even probably like a third of it.
Yeah. But then again, I full disclosure. I work for a company that routinely buys software that is like $500 a month per user. So E5 for I don't know, $48 or whatever it is. They're cheap.
It's not the most expensive egg in the basket. Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah. No. But it's an interesting sticking point, Lewis. I know that my tenant, I've got some business premiums up for renewal, and I want to get a single E5 in my tenant, and I'm going to need to make sure that business premium is properly gone. Otherwise,
I really think here that the problem isn't that they want to prevent customers having a select few users with that product. It's that they haven't technically worked out how to make those licenses blend on the tenant, because it was working before.
And when you trigger when you first go to security.microsoft.com and it spins up all of the tenants behind the scene,
database,
there's a lot going on there. And to your point, there's computationally, and there are a number of areas across the stack that the license thing becomes a bit of a a gray area about stuff being lit up if you've got one license, even though you need, the license. You have to license everybody that benefits from it. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what I want the outcome here to be. I mean, I'm quite happy trying to tell customers they need to go to E5, but it does make things difficult for more security conscious customers in that SMB market, and most of the customers are in the SMB market. So help us out, please.
Yeah,
I
get
can't
that.
help to think about, isn't it going the opposite way now? So when you had a P1, Azure P1, and now you got a P2, you got like tenant-wide features.
Yeah,
They're not
that's a common
combined,
one I see a lot. So
but
a dishonest consultant will tell the customer, you can get away with one Entra ID Premium P2 for your 600 users. Yes, it will work, but you can't plan customer budgets on license misuse. So
If you get an
but
audit,
the thing is,
it's
yeah,
it's not good.
There's money
But
to
I'm
be
just
made
thinking-
prolonging a problem. Come on, man. Think like a consultant.
But now I'm just thinking, now it's the opposite way, right? With your use case right now.
yeah,
yes,
Yeah.
it's exactly the opposite of that situation where you could in the past buy a P2 and get the features for everybody for Defender, whereas now you can't. I agree with you, Lewis. It's I think that was a possibility in the past, which is also why I think you can buy the license in the first place. Nothing's stopping you to do it.
Oh yeah, we've still got customer tenants where Defender for Business is mixing with P2 and it works fine. Everyone's got the P2, but so I think it's a phased rollout, or it might be tenants after a certain age. But I'd like to see it mixed again in some way, because Business Premium plus P2 is, I would imagine, is quite a popular combination.
It's also, I do have some customers that went with mixed licensing in terms of E3, and then high value targets would get an E5, so they could also do the DLP stuff, for example.
Yeah.
So
like risky sign-ins and some of
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the most that the business premium is mixed also with the Azure Premium P2 for the more dynamically conditional access you get from it.
And speaking about conditional access and identity related stuff, called this section, "Dude, where's my network perimeter?"
See, so that's a good one. So think about this from, I don't know, 20 years ago. What was your security perimeter? It was most likely your local network, your LAN. And you could trivially point to like this office building. Everybody is on, this domain, and on that floor in this building, we have this LAN or this subnet, whatever. So you could sort of put a perimeter around this. You could wall this off, and everything inside this thing is safe. Everything outside of this is suspect.
Usually your firewall, network.
Yeah, you have a firewall, like Cisco mid-million selling everybody a firewall. Buy this thing and you'll be safe. But obviously,
it's your castle.
It's your castle. Yeah. So then things started to change, and you have bring your own device. You have cell phones, tablets, all kinds of stuff. And now it seems that Microsoft is stepping it's headed towards an interesting direction with your perimeter, and in that they are betting on that it's going to be your identity, not your device as such. And I think that is a very interesting direction to go, especially considering they've been sort of on and off talking. Like, Microsoft has a tendency to be about 10 years ahead of everybody else. I remember a very long time ago, they were talking about, you could have all these conditions, and, if your device is on, this network, and you have this password policy or whatever, you can get access to these resources. And people just laughed at them like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. You can spoof all of this. What are you thinking? And right now, everybody here and everybody who's listening to this is probably using conditional access, which is pretty much the same thing.
Or I'm thinking Cisco ICE can do kind of the holistic, detection, network access control. And in terms of like a SASE, security service edge product, like Zscaler's been around for a number of years. So just sharing this link, you said that Microsoft's ahead. It's kind of late to the party on this one. If it's, but at the same time not.
Well, I mean, I'm a Microsoft MVP, not a Zscaler MVP, so I gotta drink that Kool-Aid.
However, so I have seen a lot of customer environments with Zscaler in their first phase, basically, where they were trying to implement it. If Microsoft can get 20% or 30% more compatible in the first 1 or 2 months you're using the global secure access, or rather in this case either the private access or what was it, Entra access, I forgot the other name.
Yeah, Entra private access.
Yeah. If they can get the compatibility, I think they already won, because again, this is about integration.
Stack integrated.
Yeah, it's stack integrated. It integrates into, which is what Johannes just brought up. It integrates into the identity stack, where you can use this in your conditional access to kind of navigate where the connection will go before it even happens. Like it's one step before that. It's happening at the identity part first, and then it happens at the network part, and not the other way around.
This first image here is that traditional network stack you were talking about, Jan. You've got your corporate network and your security, and your remote workers have got VPNs in, and you're connecting your and I gotta say it's not a particularly digestible image.
This one?
Yeah.
It's quite chewy. But once it's, I don't like using the word zero trust personally. I think it means everything and nothing, and a lot of people just use it as a buzzword. But you kind of
interesting.
So
he's not wrong. The word is pretty burned. I think where it still applies is ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Architecture. That is still, I can give it that, because I think everybody can kind of follow that logic, whereas in Zero Trust and everything else is kind of hard to grasp.
So one thing that we have to keep in mind, 20 years is not that long ago. We had all these, network castles, whatever. You had trust, or at least we could reasonably assume at the time that it was trustworthy.
You did it again.
I'd like to view this image larger.
And then we sort of move towards like, you need to trust your endpoint, so you have all kinds of fancy security software on your endpoints. And now we're sort of moving toward away from that, and that can just be a hard thing to accept to a lot of IT people, and I don't blame them. Moving away from endpoint security to identity security, or I'm probably not using the right words to describe this, but I think you guys know what I mean.
Yeah,
you're gonna have a rough time.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, even just telling people hey, you can just get rid of your firewall as such. Everybody just connects directly to the internet now.
I mean, those things. It's a legacy thinking thing, and it's an ownership thing. In my opinion, from what I see, it's like the network team aren't going to want to lose control of stuff, because what else are they going to do? Like, that's our job.
You
And
know,
then your infrastructure
man,
team and the security team,
yeah.
who owns what?
So that reminds me of something. I attended I think it was Cisco. It was a Cisco presentation about 9 years ago or something. They were talking about networks of the future. You will not have any LAN. You will have a 5G access point inside your building because everybody is going directly to the internet. But it can be on your 5G network. Like every endpoint will have like a 5G chip or 4G, whatever, LTE. And they will all be on the same network anywhere in the world.
Yep.
That was their whole sales pitch back then. Oh, you don't need a Wi-Fi anymore. You just have 4G inside the office. And we have the equipment for it.
I was I believe in Amsterdam when they did that exact sales pitch with my company back then. Yeah, I agree. They were also thinking about this for quite a while.
But like
now.
if you sort of dive into that, it's basically, oh, you have your little castle. Now you can have an enormous castle. A castle around the whole planet. It's yours. It doesn't really make any sense, but you know.
I mean,
I
from that
appreciate
perspective, it
your line of
doesn't.
thinking.
there's certainly an
Go ahead.
argument that, like, when you get to a certain point, say you've cloud natived all of your devices and stuff's going through, I don't know, AAD app proxy, and you haven't got file shares. If somebody is in the office, like, what are you protecting with that network access control? Like, if that device isn't directly connecting to something that's within that building and it has to go out over the internet, like, you might as well just have an open network in your office.
Yeah.
It's a lot about control, and it's a lot about trust, especially for the network admins that I know and I've come to know over the years. They don't trust anything. I've seen a core
Zero
switch
trust.
run for like 3 or 4 years because they didn't trust the update to reboot and come back. Like, that's the level we're talking about. They would never ever trust a cloud service to do what they have been doing on-prem for the last 15 or 20 years. No way. Absolutely no way they are going to trust a cloud service in that regard.
Isn't the problem that it's not 2003 anymore?
I think it was Swift on Security on Twitter who mentioned that there is a lot of folklore in IT, and you need to keep that in mind.
Yes.
There's a lot of these weird ideas like, oh, we have a core switch. We should never reboot it because that's bad luck. Like, what do you mean?
There's a lot
You
of
should
fear of the
reboot that
unknown.
thing anytime.
Same with BIOS updates or
Yeah.
UEFI updates. They all have dual BIOS now. Like, what are you going to break? You might break one of them, not two of them. That's the whole point.
I have one other sort of scenario to put here then. For people who have those traditional networks, who have got Windows SMB file share on their corporate network, firewall, people from home connecting from VPNs, where in 5 years, if we use all of this technology, does that file server go if they want to keep it on-prem? Like, what happens to the firewall? Is it just gone, or is it connected to the cloud service directly?
Well, doesn't Entra Private Access just solve that completely? Because it basically means you don't have to have a VPN. It's still agent-based. You still install it, but you have direct line of
Yes.
sight. You don't need to move it, but you can
So
get rid of your costly VPN solution.
So to try
Which-
and put this into context of what lots of admins will be used to, it's a bit like an app proxy. There's something that installs on the Windows server that will facilitate that connection to the Entra ID service, and your users go straight through that service into the network.
And they don't, but the
Well,
thing they don't
no.
understand is the authentication part here. Because to get to that server on-prem, which goes back to Johannes' point in the first place, is the identity part. You need to go through multi-factor, conditional access, all of that before you can even get to that connection. That is the
And
genius
prove
part
who
on
you
that.
are.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not exactly getting access to the network. You're getting access to this specific resource. and nothing else.
Endpoint.
Yes.
So it's not even like
And-
remotely the same thing.
No.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's really interesting with the picture you had before, James. I don't know if you have it yet still, but the continuous evaluation.
CAE,
The
yeah.
continuous access
Yeah.
evaluation.
See,
Yeah,
it's going to be turned on by default, if I remember correctly.
and I think that one is how do you call it in English? You say it's under call it. It's been there for a long time, right? But I don't see a lot of people using it yet.
Oh,
True.
continual
But-
access evaluation. Yeah, no,
It's
I agree.
already on CA policy, isn't it, for certain sessions and access to 365
Exactly.
resources?
Yes.
But the interesting with this one, now it's going to be a lot more integrated and stuff, and I think that they're going to make a lot more around it for the future now. But I never really implemented something great. How can I say this? You have your SharePoint site. You have this data. You have this data laying around in your storage and your SharePoint, and you want to access this specific document, right? You can integrate this one into MCAS. So you already have a lot of evaluation going on, but you're not really leveraging that enormous kind of evaluation that you can actually use. If that makes sense. Didn't make sense. Maybe I didn't explain it correctly.
No, I think I know where you're going with this. In that with this technology, you've now got something to actually act on the amount of data you've got, rather than just sort of analyzing it.
Oh.
You got a lot more. Yeah.
There's a lot more
yeah.
control with the actual
Yeah.
telemetry you're collecting, and you can view privately in your tenant. I mean, how often have
And
we
what you're trying to do.
we've seen Defender for Cloud apps configured, but people don't do anything other than just go, oh, look, there's a lot of traffic going to Netflix. And yes, you can do more stuff with it, but this extends that.
Yeah, exactly. That's one I think is going to be improved and probably going to be a lot more integrated in systems now. Because back to the authentication part, it's all in the token, right?
Yeah, final thoughts. Apart from thank you very much to Johannes and Martin for coming on and chatting stuff
Well,
with us.
Sure.
Entra good.
You owe me a beer.
That's right.
Always owe you a beer.
The amount of
Let's see.
beers we have to pay to you is insurmountable and undrinkable, probably.
Save
with that
time,
attitude.
absinthe.
I mean, there is such a thing as Oktoberfest. You could just create a Johannes Fest and just share the joy. I'm not against it.
Yeah, but what problem are you trying to solve?
Get rid of the beer before the
sobriety.
kids get into it.
Get rid of your
Right.
liver is probably the thing he's trying to solve.
Yeah, who needs a liver anyway?
And on
No,
that
too
note-
soon. No, I'm gonna bite my tongue here. That is too soon. No, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you
same.
very well. And
See you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.